May your love and your truth protect us. For here lies the dead, dust of the earth.
Hi, Dad.
Hey, buddy.
Are you coming home?
Yeah, soon. I gotta go right now.
They're acting like a flock of birds. Like, what do you guys think that is?
They may be the next stage in human evolution.
No, we're gonna survive this. People are gonna have to put aside their sensibilities. If they can't, they're gonna die.
Ellen? You okay?
Good always conquers evil. I believe that.
After former DARPA director Regina Dugan left Google,
started making electronic tattoos. So I'm wearing one here on my arm.
Do we have
Here.
a camera to get a...
This is a developmental system made by MC10, and it has an antenna and some sensors embedded in it. And what we plan to do is work with them to advance a tattoo that could be used for authentication.
Facebook hired her to run its secretive Building 8 project, which she announced earlier this year will enable us to connect to the social media platform using only our brainwaves, and something she called Silent Voice First.
What if you could type directly from your brain? It sounds impossible, but it's closer than you may realize. And it's just the kind of fluid human-computer interface needed for AR. So what if instead of using imagined arm movements, we could decode speech directly?
It's the stuff of a Hollywood movie, but a group of veterans has filed a lawsuit against the CIA and U.S. Army claiming that the government planted remote-controlled devices in their brains. The claims relate to a government program at the U.S. Army's Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland, where scientists tested hundreds of chemical and biological substances on at least 7,800 servicemen. So could this really be happening? Well, joining me to help discuss this is Dr. Colin Ross, president of the Colin A. Ross Institute for Psychological Trauma. Dr. Ross, tell me, is this really happening? Did the government really take part in mind control experiments on soldiers? What kind of stories have you heard from the survivors of these experiments? I know you've had access to thousands of documents from the CIA.
Well, it's just like you just said, there's two kind of streams of information. There's stories from survivors, and then there's the documents. So if I go to the documents first, they're very, very detailed, 15,000 pages plus. And we're starting back in 1950 with projects called Artichoke and Bluebird, which were then rolled over into MK Ultra, which in turn was rolled over to MK Search. And then all the documents stop in 1973. So in that era, 50 to 73, there's a whole host of different types of mind control experiments: hypnosis, LSD, special interrogation chambers, and brain electrode implants. And so there's projects in the CIA documents and in Army records where electrodes are put into dolphins, and the dolphins are directed by remote transmitter to deliver a bomb to a target. And there's a discussion of similar technology in cats and other animals. There's research funded by the Office of Naval Research published in mainstream journals where electrodes are put in the brains of cats, dogs, and their behaviors controlled, and even human beings at Harvard and Yale. So this is absolutely documented fact.
In 2011, late 2011, during the holiday season, I had this vision, and I was taken to this room, and it was a rather large, huge room, and it appeared that basically floor to ceiling almost full of computers, like computer screens, and they were more advanced than what we know today, than even our plasma flat screens. They were more advanced than that, even. They were incredibly advanced. These computer screens, they covered the walls, and maybe they were television screens. I don't know what they were. I just know they were screens that had some kind of projection, some kind. And it was absolutely ridiculous. And there was this dark figure behind them all that was just controlling everything. This figure was watching everyone and even controlling some. He had the ability to do what he wanted with certain people on the screens. I mean, if he wanted someone to die, they would. He had the ability to kill them right then. He had the ability to have others, make the other person's life a living hell. This dark figure had the ability to control everything. Maybe not everything, but certain people, I should say.
Okay, let's put two and two together here, folks. We have this woman named Regina E. Duggan, who was the 19th director of DARPA, and she also worked at Google at an executive role position, and she was bringing in some of this technology that DARPA was using. We have this story I just showed you from 2010 where some soldiers allege that they were basically experimented on for mind control using chip implants in their head. So here we have the same exact technology that was used on soldiers, and we see them allegedly using it to control soldiers' actions. And of course, this Regina Duggan says that this technology would never be used for that. They won't even read those thoughts that you don't want them to read. They'll just read the thoughts that you're trying to communicate. Whenever you're trying to speak, I guess, in your mind, it will be able to read your thought and be able to convey it to another person who also has a chip in their mind. So, sort of a telepathy of sorts, right? Yeah, and so you're going to trust someone like this, who used to work for DARPA, to put a chip in your mind just to read those thoughts you want them to read, of course. And of course, they're not going to use these chips like they did on soldiers. No, they're totally ethical. They would never do that. Of course not. And of course, we have this here, this vision. I put this vision in video form like 3 years ago on my channel. And I postulated back then about this whole topic, that the whole idea of what it says in Revelation about there being a mark in their forehead and in their wrist, it makes perfect sense if you think about it. The forehead part is your brain. This is how you would be able to connect digitally to whatever, the internet or whatever. And then the one in your hand would be so you can buy stuff. You'd wave your hand over something. Do you have a chip? Oh, I got a chip in my hand, right? That's what you would be saying. They want you to be conditioned to say that, because what do you have in your card right now? A chip. So do you have a chip in your card? Yeah, I got a chip in my card, right? So this is the whole idea. So they have these whole, does it really make a lot of sense that they would have just a chip showing on your card? Does that even make sense? Why? And on top of the fact that it's extremely inefficient, it takes longer than it used to. You used to just swipe and it was really fast. Now you got to put this thing in, wait a while. It's slower. So, it's just very interesting how that was an alleged, leap in technology when it wasn't. It seems like they're, in a sense, trying to condition society to accept certain things, to think certain ways. And you know, they want to sell this to you. They want to make money off you in the process. And of course, in the end, as in all cases with all types of any governance, they're going to want to have some sort of leg up on those they govern. And if you have a freaking chip in your head, of course there's going to be a way through a back door to have some sort of way to manipulate your emotions, to talk to you in a certain way. Maybe some AI will be talking to you and become your friend in your brain. Then you won't have to talk to God anymore, right? You can just talk to this little robot AI who, of course, will be probably very similar to Alexa. You know, you have Google and Amazon's was it Echo and Alexa. And if you ask them, if you go check out some videos, just go search on YouTube some videos where they ask these devices, who is Jesus? The first one says he's a fictional character. The second one doesn't even know who he is. But if you ask him who Allah is, who Muhammad is, who Buddha is, you ask it pretty much. If you ask it's any other person about any other person who's a religious figure, it will know the answer. It will tell you an answer. So I find it very intriguing. You know, these AIs have been programmed against Christianity as well. Wow, that's a shocker, right? So you have these chips being designed. They want to roll some of this stuff out. And actually, this video was going to be just about 5G. I was actually going to do this video on 5G. I guess that'll be next time. But, I mean, 5G is also a whole nother hairy mess. I mean, you have some nasty cancer that's going to be coming from those puppies because they're worse than 4G. They're at a higher frequency, more targeted. They have to have more cell towers up. It's just like total cancer zone. And they're going to be all throughout residential neighborhoods. And they're going to roll it out, and they're basically intentionally ignoring what people want. So you ever notice that how they're ignoring what people actually want? They're trying to push these things onto people. So of course that's going to be part of the whole system as well, because they're going to have everything continuously online. Even your wallpaper is going to be intelligent. Everything's going to have sort of like an invisible background, online capability, computer AI type capability. Like I said, even your wallpaper. I hope not your toilet paper, but your wallpaper or whatever is going to have the ability. It's going to be a smart wallpaper. You know, all your appliances are going to be able to communicate. And of course, if you have a chip in your brain, you can be online all the time. So you see what I'm talking about? And of course, all this stuff is going to be used to control you as well. It's going to be like 1984. It ain't rocket science. So, you know, I thought I'd present this because it clearly is something that they're pushing right now. They're trying to roll out 5G. They're also trying to roll out this idea of connecting to Facebook via microchip implant in your brain. Okay? This is stuff that they're doing in the next couple years. This is what they're doing right now. Okay? Where do you think this is going to go? You think this is going to go in a good place? And what about those people who reject these things? Those who reject the chip in the brain or in the forearm. What happens to those people? You know, maybe at first be like, oh, well, you're just you're slow behind the times, and then eventually you're an outcast to society, and then they're going to be hunting you down. This is sort of the idea, and of course you're going to want to be able to live off the land at that point because you're not going to be part of the matrix anymore. You're an outcast. You're not part of the system. And obviously you're going to need Jesus at that point. I hope you're already a Christian. If you're not, I hope you start to wake up to this whole thing. It's pretty crazy if you think about it. Now you can see that the intro to this video was not exactly science fiction, wasn't exactly crazy. It was actually something sort of related to what might happen one day. You never know, man. I mean, just imagine some hacker getting into this system and just controlling people and making them go crazy in some location. It really could happen if everybody's connected to the internet with their brain.
Next time you see this plant in your backyard, don't cut it down, because this is the best natural painkiller you'll ever find. Some people even compare it to morphine. This common plant is called wild lettuce, and was commonly used by Native Americans 2 centuries ago for both food and medicine. So today I'm going to show you how to make a simple wild lettuce extract to keep in your medicine cabinet and use whenever you need it. Now if you take a leaf or stem and squeeze it, you'll see a white substance coming out. This is where the potency of the plant lies. Because of this white juice, the early European settlers also called it opium lettuce. This milky substance doesn't contain any opiates, but it's working on the central nervous system directly to lessen the feeling of pain. Nowadays, many people are turning their attention back to this lost knowledge and use it as a replacement for addictive prescription pain medicines. So let's avert our gaze from our modern survival thinking for just a bit and look at how our great-grandparents did it 150 years ago. This is exactly the kind of information I found in this 350-page book called The Lost Ways. This is probably the only survival book I've actually enjoyed reading. You won't believe how many survival things we've lost to history. I found the wild lettuce on page 113 and decided to make my own painkiller. I collected about 50 leaves today and washed them thoroughly. So the first thing you should do is grind them up in a blender, not very thinly and only just for a few seconds. Place the ground leaves into a wide pot and add just enough water to cover them. Now place the pot on the stove on low heat for 30 minutes. Do not let it boil because you'll destroy all the good stuff in it. Stir every 15 minutes until the water reaches a dark brown color, just like this. Now pour the substance while still hot into another pot through a strainer. Almost none or very little plant material should get through it. Try to squeeze as much water as you can while the plant is in the strainer. This solution contains all the core elements of wild lettuce, especially the pain-killing essence. But it's not concentrated enough yet. So in order to obtain this essence, you should warm it over low heat again until the water is vaporized, basically dehydrating the solution until it becomes a paste like this. Be careful at the end when there is little water left. You should not burn the extract at the bottom of the pot. What you should have now here is pure wild lettuce extract. You can pour it in a small glass container like this and put it in your medicine cabinet for later use when you'll need it. Wild lettuce is unscheduled by the FDA, meaning it's legal to grow, own, and forage without prescription or license, just like how the Native Americans used to heal their pain. In The Lost Ways, you'll find lots of these common and valuable weeds with pictures, how to identify them, how to prepare them, and how to use them, all with different medical effects. Because when the medical system collapses, this will be the only option you have to heal yourself. I personally happen to know the man behind this book. Claude is an old-fashioned guy by any standard. He lives with his wife and 2 children in a log cabin he personally built, cooks outside on an open flame in a cauldron most of the time, and all of his clothes are handmade. He has a 150-square-foot root cellar stuffed with all sorts of homemade canned foods and goods, and he raises cows, sheep, and chickens. I thought several times to myself that this guy will never be troubled by any crisis, because the coming crisis we all prep for is what folks 150 years ago called daily life. No electrical power, no refrigerators, no internet, no computers, no TV, no hyperactive law enforcement, no Safeway or Walmart. They got things done or else we wouldn't be here. In the next 7 minutes, Claude will unearth a long-forgotten secret that helped our ancestors survive famines, wars, economic crisis, disease, droughts, and anything else life threw at them. A secret that will help you do the same for your loved ones when America crumbles into the ground. He's also going to share with you 3 pioneer lessons that will ensure your kids are well fed even when others are rummaging through garbage bins. In fact, these 3 old teachings will improve your life just as they did for me, immediately once you hear them.
My name is Claude Davis. You may know me from my website, askaprepper.com, or you may have seen my warnings in the media, but few of you know me personally. My story is emotionally heavy, with struggles and disappointments, but also with a faith in God and a strong will to survive that finally led me being here. So pay close attention, because this video will change your life for the good. Lesson number 1, don't take anything for granted. My grandparents from my father's side came to America from Ukraine just before the Second World War and started a small farm in Texas where I grew up without missing a thing. But my grandfather wasn't so lucky. When he was only 12 and still in Ukraine, he survived one of the most horrific famines. Of the 100 families that lived on his street, only 20 survived. So what you're about to hear is a real recollection, as it was written in a personal journal just after the crisis by one of his neighbors. Where did all the bread disappear? I do not really know. Maybe they've taken it all abroad. The authorities have confiscated it, removed it from the villages, loaded grain into the railway coaches, and took it away someplace. They've searched the houses and taken away everything, to the smallest thing. All the vegetable gardens, all the cellars were raked out, and everything was taken away. It was so dreadful that every day became engraved in my memory. People were lying everywhere as dead flies. The stench was awful. Many of our neighbors and acquaintances from our street died. We tried to survive the best we could. We collected grass, goosefoot, burdocks, rotten potatoes, and made pancakes, soups from putrid beans or nettles, collected clay from the trees and ate it, ate sparrows, pigeons, cats, and dogs. When there were still cattle, it was eaten first, then the domestic animals. Some were eating their own children. I would never be able to eat my child. One of our neighbors came home when her husband, suffering from severe starvation, ate their own baby daughter. This woman went crazy. Another neighbor wrote a petition to the authorities, and here's just a paragraph from that. It said, "Please return the grain that you've confiscated from me. If you don't return it, I'll die. I'm 78 years old and I'm incapable of searching for food for myself." And of course, nobody cared. In a crisis, it's everyone for himself. Although in many cases, families did still remain families. But just after the winter, when there's absolutely nothing to eat, my grandfather, together with his mother, went to the nearest town where the government had established a soup kitchen. Unfortunately, the 25-mile journey was too much for his mother. After just 5 miles, she couldn't walk anymore. My grandfather noted in his journal, "Mother said, save yourself, run to town." I turned back twice. I could not bear to leave my mother, but she begged and cried, and I finally went for good. Now, I don't know about you guys. I'm a father myself, and when I read these things, I burst into tears. Now, please allow me to take a wild guess here, without getting mad at me. Your life's not perfect, but at least you have a computer or a mobile device to watch this video on. Your fridge is probably half full, and while you have your problems, starvation is not one of them. And even though your job or retirement could be more enjoyable, you probably have enough money to at least get by. And that's great. But make no mistake taking this for granted. History has shown us many times that it can all fly away in a split second. The biggest misstep that you can take now is to think that this can never happen in America or to you. All that my grandfather and our ancestors who came here and formed America lived through would be in vain without lesson number 2. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Now, call me old-fashioned, I don't care, but I completely believe in America and what our ancestors stood for. They all had a part in turning this land into one of the most powerful countries in the world. Many died and suffered before a creative mind found an ingenious solution to, maybe, a century-long problem. Now, believe it or not, our ancestors' skills are all covered in American blood. And this is why these must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same for our children and our children's children. But now, my friends, we're sitting on the edge of oblivion. Our fathers and grandfathers were probably the last generation to practice basic things like building a root cellar or making pemmican. Our ancestors laid the bricks and built the world's strongest foundation that we're about to irreversibly forget. And we're going to pay the ultimate price for this, because if you have a big, strong house with a weak foundation, it doesn't matter if it looks nice on the outside. The next flood will sweep it away. And that is exactly what will happen to most Americans in the coming crisis. So here we are, human beings in the 21st century, several lifetimes and a world away from our grandparents and their ways. Have we become better at living? I think not. I watch as we have become ever more expectant that the world owes us a living. Consumerism has reached epic proportions, and people feel aggrieved if they don't own the latest gadget. The truth is, we never have been more disconnected from life, from the world, from the soil, from the trees, and from our own souls. We're straying away from our roots on a dangerous road from which there will be no turning back. And the good and the bad news is that we're the last generation that can truly do something about it. We no longer know how to live without refrigerators, without cars, without phones, without supermarkets. What will you do tomorrow if you simply are unable to buy things? I sometimes think that we're kidding ourselves with our bug-out bags and with our 3-day food rations. Wouldn't we be better off looking at what the pioneers took with them when they traveled from Independence, Missouri all the way to Oregon City? Game meat was unreliable even then, so don't think that they made this 5-month journey counting only on that. If your life depended on this, what bug-out bag would you take with you? I know I'd stick with whatever the pioneer had with him. He had to travel weeks on end without much help while taking cover from some native tribes at the same time. And this is just a small, tiny example. I don't want to see our forefathers' knowledge disappear into the darkness of time. And if you care about your family and what America stands for, then neither should you. This is the third and most important lesson of all. It's always up to you. Now, I believe in God and in the power of free will, and I believe that you are the only one in charge of your destiny, and that you're constantly making decisions that shape the rest of your life. Now, it's true we all had different starts, depending on our families and upbringing, but for most of us here in the United States, we at least had decent beginnings. We had water and food, we could go shopping from time to time, and we had a decent medical system compared to other countries. We should be more thankful for that. And we should ensure that we have something put aside for darker times. If anything goes wrong with this country, don't blame the government or the president. They don't truly care about you or your family. You'll be the only one in charge of your fate. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but nothing falls from the sky. God helps you, but He doesn't lay it on your table. You have to work hard and do things yourself. As long as you're aware of this, your destiny rests solely on you and your willpower. Now, you can truly change things, and you can do a lot more than you think you can. With this idea in mind, 5 years ago, I wanted to do something that hadn't been done before. Something that not only would help me survive a crisis without investing a fortune in stockpiles, but something that I could do around my house on a daily basis using only methods that were tested and proven by our forefathers for centuries. I wanted to unearth and learn the forgotten ways of our great-grandparents. I went to my grandfather to find out how he survived and to learn the little secrets that helped him stay alive in spite of almost everyone else dying. Now, he was almost 90 years old, but the old man was still in good shape. For 3 weeks on end, I absorbed his lessons like a dry sponge. And on top of that, we built a lot of things together, including a root cellar and a storm shelter, just like the folks did when he was young. We made lard and ham, and we smoked 4 turkeys and preserved them for winter in 4 different traditional ways, and a lot more. And when I was a child, I was raised by my grandparents, but I hadn't spent much quality time with them until then. In fact, there were months when we barely even spoke, not because we couldn't stand each other, but only because I was always too busy working or taking care of my kids. A lame excuse and a thing that I deeply regretted later on in life. Well, my grandfather passed on a couple of years ago, and with him, a magnificent amount of survival knowledge. I don't know if you're in a similar situation, but think about your grandfather and how many things he did or knew, things that will vanish forever into the dark abyss of ignorance. And because I deeply believed in lesson number 3, that I was the only one who could change something, my goal for the last couple of years changed from not just learning, but saving our forefathers' ways. This is one of the most important things I've done in my life, and I'm proud of it, but it took me 5 difficult years. Now, first, there's no person that knows all our forefathers' forgotten secrets. Let's just say there are still a handful of people that still practice a lost skill transmitted from generation to generation, even today. But not all the skills, of course. I had to get in touch with a lot of people. Second, where do you find these guys? They are no mainstream survival experts. They don't have a website or a TV show. And some of them even live in remote areas with no internet or TV cable, earning a living like the pioneers did. Third, I wanted to do something unprecedented. You know, articles like 11 skills your great-grandparents had that you didn't, and they started listing the skills: hunting, fishing, foraging, butchering, and so on. Well, you know, this kind of information will never help anyone. I needed something solid, exact, and to the point. Not just skills, I wanted to know things that they actually built, ate, and stored, and exactly how they did it. And fourth, I'm not sitting on a gold mine. As much as I enjoyed traveling and learning these skills, I still needed to go to work. But what I didn't realize when I started my quest is that you can't save these skills only by writing them down. If all these writings will be forgotten in a dusty drawer right next to my bed, it won't help anyone. This knowledge will die together with me, and all my efforts to save our forefathers' ways would have been in vain. So this is because all my life I blindly believed in Lesson 3, that it's always up to me. But I was wrong. In this case, it's only halfway there. It's also up to you. Today is your chance to be a part of saving our ancestors' lost ways. I wanted to make this information available to every family out there without having to spend years of their lives or thousands of dollars. So I came up with this great idea to edit all my manuscripts and turn all this lost knowledge into one of the greatest books of this century. The Lost Ways, Saving Our Forefathers' Skills. Now, as you can see, I designed and edited the book in an old-fashioned way, but most of it is not written by me personally, because I didn't want people to read a second account. I'm sure a lot of information would have been lost in this process. You know, those little secrets that make a thing really work? Those little things that make a big difference. So I paid these experts for their time, and I got what I wanted. These people are not professional writers, but instead are uniquely special. They're neither the strong, badass type that you see in Rambo movies, nor the ultra-rich preppers from reality shows. They're simple people who know a lost skill very, very well. They're smart, shrewd, and wise enough to survive for months or even years in the world's most remote places. Now, here's a glimpse of what you'll find in The Lost Ways. You'll discover the lost remedies used by our ancestors for centuries. And I'm not talking about rare and complicated insights that only a botanist knows. I'm talking about plants that grow in your backyard or around your house. Very common weeds. For example, this common driveway weed is one of nature's most powerful survival plants. It's not only edible, but it's super nutritious, easy to identify, has no poisonous lookalikes, and is used as medicine. Following the instructions from The Lost Ways, go ahead and use this underestimated or discredited plant and make yourself a powerful antimicrobial and cell regrowth bandage. Or simply make a tea with it that can be used for a wide range of digestive problems and toothaches. Native American Eric Bainbridge, who is on the board of directors of a Native American Educational and took part in the reconstruction of the native village of Kualoklo in California, will show you how Native Americans build the subterranean roundhouse, an underground house that today will serve you as a storm shelter, a perfectly camouflaged hideout, or a bunker. It can easily shelter 3 to 4 families. So how will you feel if, when all hell breaks loose, you'll be able to call all your loved ones and offer them guidance and shelter? And besides that, the subterranean roundhouse makes an awesome root cellar where you can keep all your food and water reserves year-round. From Ruff Simmons, an Old West history expert and former deputy, you'll learn the techniques and methods used by the wise sheriffs from the frontiers to defend an entire village despite being outnumbered and outgunned by gangs of robbers and bandits, and how you can use their wisdom to defend your home against looters when you'll be surrounded. Patrick Shelley, who earned a living in the woods for years on end, will show you how to make foolproof traps. He wrote an awesome chapter about how to trap different animals in winter just like our forefathers. When 100 hungry mouths will shoot each other over the last deer to feed their children, your family can eat the favorite food of trappers and mountain men from the 1800s. From Shannon Azares, you'll learn how sailors from the 18th century preserved water in their ships for months on end even years, and how you can use this method to preserve water for your family cost-free. Mike Searson, who is a firearm and Old West history expert, will show you what to do when there's no more ammo to be had, how people who wandered the West managed to hunt 8 deer with 6 bullets, and why their supply of ammo never ran out. Remember the panic buying in the first half of 2013? Well, that was nothing compared to what's going to precede the collapse. From Susan Morrow, an ex-science teacher and chemist, you'll master the art of poultice. She says, if you really explore the ingredients from which our forefathers made poultices, you'll be totally surprised by the similarities with modern medicine. Well, how would you feel in a crisis to be the only one from the group knowledgeable about this lost skill? When there are no more antibiotics, people will turn to you to save their children's lives. If you liked our video tutorial on how to make pemmican, then you'll love this. I'll show you how to make another superfood that our troops were using in the Revolutionary War, which even George Washington ate on several occasions. This food never goes bad, and I'm not talking about honey or vinegar. I'm talking about real food. And the awesome part is that you can make this food in just 10 minutes, and I'm pretty sure that you already have the ingredients in your house right now. Now, really, this is all just a peek. The Lost Ways is a far-reaching book with chapters ranging from simple things like making tasty bark bread, like people did when there was no food, to building a traditional backyard smokehouse, and many, many, many more. And believe it or not, this isn't all. If you get The Lost Ways right now, you'll also receive 3 exclusive reports that will be off the table soon. There's an old saying that our great-grandparents used to know. Once in life, you need a doctor, a lawyer, a policeman, and a preacher. But every day, 3 times a day, you need a farmer. So the first report you'll get is what every survivalist should grow in his backyard. This special report contains the most nutritious and toughest plants that you should start growing so you'll never run out of food. These plants are reliable in the worst possible conditions, including drought, flooding, or light deprivation. And you'll also find instructions on how to plant, grow, harvest, and store them. I'm also pretty sure that you're familiar with this 150-year-old saying that it's not the strongest species that survived nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. So the second bonus you'll get is how to outlive an EMP, the early pioneer way, which is a day-by-day guide that shows you what to do after an EMP every day for 30 days using the Lost Ways. Think about it this way. If an EMP had struck in the late 1800s, nobody would have noticed it. Our great-grandparents didn't even know what an EMP was, nor did they know what modern technology was. But they surely lived, survived, and prospered without it. Now things are a little bit different, and because this event can happen all of a sudden with no warning whatsoever, it might be difficult for even the smartest minds to know what to do from the moment the running water stops and your food spoils to the moment when looters come knocking at your door. So in this report, you'll learn the 10 things that you should do on day 1, what you should make on day 2, what you definitely need to turn to on day 3, and so on until day 30, when you'll be absolutely 100% self-sufficient, protected, and able to help others if you want to. Unless you're living in a bunker full of stockpiles, doing these things in the wrong order may literally mean death. Now, I'll show you what to do every day so you'll never run out of water, food, or heat, and then what to do or build to improve things day by day. Another old saying people used to say is, for every minute you spend organizing, an hour is earned. So the third report you'll get is a step-by-step guide to building your own can rotation system that can hold at least 700 cans of different sizes. You'll never have to look at 50 cans for expiration dates, and you'll never need to throw away cans again because they've spoiled. A can rotator is not only a time saver but also a money saver. As you can see in this video, the mechanism is very simple. Whenever you buy new cans, you insert them in the upper shelf, The cans will automatically roll down, and they'll be the last in the row. When you pick them up, you do so from the shelf below. So you'll always pick the can that you bought first and therefore with the closest expiration date. Cool and efficient. The one you've just seen in the video, I built with only $95. Pretty cheap if you think that a similar rotator costs $420 on Amazon and holds only 450 cans, and theirs aren't even that cool. Now, once you have the plans and the step-by-step guide with pictures, all it takes is just 1 day of work, even less. So, if you choose to save the Lost Ways now, you'll also get these 3 exclusive bonuses that are worth $29 each for free, and unlimited access to the members area, where you can ask me anything at any time. I'll be there to answer your questions and to help you if you need any clarification on anything. By knowing the ways of our forefathers, believe it or not, you're covered for anything. You'll never have to spend money on any prepping material again. And forget about unreliable and expensive modern survival equipment. Why even bother with reinventing the wheel when these things have been working right for centuries? The Lost Ways prepares you to deal with worst-case scenarios with the minimum amount of resources, just like our forefathers lived their lives, totally independent from electricity, cars, or modern technology whatsoever. Which means you'll also be bulletproof against the ever-increasing threat of an electromagnetic pulse, a powerful economic breakdown, famines, and natural disasters. You'll have the power to protect and save your family, even to rebuild your community during the worst of times. And besides that, The Lost Ways is not merely a survival book, because most of the knowledge you'll find in it will begin improving things in your life starting today. What I'm talking about is the type of self-sufficiency that our great-grandfathers used to have. I'm talking about things that they did around their homes and the healthy lives that they lived. And at the same time, you get to take part in doing something great, saving our forefathers' lost skills. Now, I consider that I've done my part, the hardest and costliest part, if I may say so. All you need to do is to make sure that you hand this knowledge over when it's time to, and take full advantage of it until then. Now, I've shown it to some expert preppers and readers of mine, and some of them said that they would easily pay $1,000 just to learn these skills. I even thought of creating a weekend workshop and charging at least $500 for a seat. There are a lot of people that do that. But I realized that this would be wrong because only a handful of people will actually learn the Lost Ways. And while my main focus is not to get rich, but to save these skills by spreading this knowledge to other people just like me. Now, remember when a man's word was his bond? When you made an agreement and you just shook on it? Well, frankly, I'd like to do things the old-fashioned way here, on a handshake. So today, you can just shake my hand and seal the deal for a price that anyone can afford. While this video is still up, you can get The Lost Ways plus the 3 bonuses for a one-time special offer of just $37. But the only way to get it is to click the Add to Cart button below now. The way I see it, you have 3 options here. You can hope that things will get better and that a crisis will never strike America. And I'm hoping the same thing, by the way. But my grandfather taught me better. He taught me, as I've told you, to never take anything for granted.